thoughts are very same. I think Michigan State is an excellent ball club. They're well coached. They're playing with a real sense of purpose, and we'll learn from it. It wasn't a fun experience to go through it, but I'm convinced that we'll get better as a football team. The style of football that they play and how they play is where we eventually want to get to. And so we're licking our wounds up. I think it's going to be important that we utilize this week to get honed up on our fundamentals, get a little bit stronger in the weight room. Some guys need to get healed up, get refreshed. We're certainly going to work on University of Hawaii, and then we'll do some in-season recruiting. So I know we have a couple callers on the line here, so I'll open up the questions that they may have. Well, we watched a lot of tape on them. We're working extensively on them, and I think they're much improved from last year. Against Colorado, they shifted quarterbacks quite a bit, and that's always a challenge. Defensively, they're playing much better. And I believe they've competed against 3 Pac-12 teams and come up short. They defeated Northern Iowa, a school that we know a great deal about from the Missouri Valley Conference. And I also know this through the years that they play extremely well on the island, and that's going to be a challenge for us getting ready to play them.
Craig, after looking at the film, was there anything else? You mentioned obviously Michigan State's very good, but anything that stood out to you on film that was good or bad from the Michigan State game, at least as far as your team goes?
Well, you got to look at our running backs. They continue to make big plays against some pretty good people and very good people, and then we had a couple big plays from our receivers as well, and so that was consistent against Oregon. It was consistent against Michigan State. So from that standpoint, you got to look and say we need to continue to highlight those players because they've shown that they have the ability to compete, not only compete but excel on a grand stage. Now, there's other parts of our football team. Our assignments on defense have got to improve. There were things that Michigan State did well, but there's things that we've got to get corrected fundamentally. The other thing that became apparent to us is that our physicality when we're playing somebody like Michigan State is deficient, and sometimes it takes a game like that to really give you I don't want to say a wake-up call, Robert, but that's a baseline to where you're saying, okay, now that's the best, and that's where we need to be. And so that portion is going to be a long-term correction. The other things, we've got to hone up and get fixed. And in special teams, we had that field goal blocked, and we've been pretty good in that area. We've got to work on our protection there.
You mentioned, the running back play. With Sean, you knew going in that he could break tackles, was a powerful running back. Have you been pleasantly surprised with his ability to break off long gainers, these 40 and 50-yard runs?
Well, that's a good comment, and I agree with you. I have been surprised, and that's not, making a knock on Sean. I thought initially Sean was going to be a plugger, not a plugger, but a guy that's going to turn the chains over, and DJ would be the big play hit guy. And what you're seeing is both of them have ability to make big plays, but you're seeing time and time again Sean breaking off big runs, and it was. He made a nice cut. The Michigan State safety missed him, and he was in the end zone.
How much does it help him in this offense where he seems to be a natural north-south runner? He's going to hit the hole and find it. How much does that kind of fit into what you guys like to do there?
Well, that was a real concern of ours as we came here. We're a tailback-oriented offense when it comes to the running game, and the downhill runs are significantly different than what a runner does in a spread offense. I'm sure Sean was excited about the style of offense that we're playing also because, deep down, he sees himself as a tailback, and he certainly excelled as a tailback, and will continue not only with Sean but with DJ and Brian to utilize our tailbacks.
You mentioned you'll practice this week and then do some, so will you go normal practice days through the middle of the week and then coaches go out the end of the week to recruit, or kind of how will this week go practice-wise?
Today we're not practicing, but they're spending time in the weight room doing recovery. We'll do extra film work. I think it's important to, some of our guys have been getting through to the next game. We will have practice on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, Robert, and then we'll be out to games on Friday, and then we'll be back in Laramie to have a practice Saturday afternoon, and then we'll have Sunday off. That's the day off we give our players, and then it's back to work Monday, getting ready for Hawaii.
As far as the bye weeks go, you guys have been very successful after bye games at North Dakota State. I'm wondering just kind of what's your mentality with the bye week about what you try to focus on, what you do differently than you would normally do?
Well, every year is a different year, but there's kind of been a similar formula that we've used. Certainly, there's guys on your football team that need to take the week, and we're hoping we get Ledecky back. After he clears a concussion test, and a couple other guys at Sam Hardy we're probably not going to practice this week. He's serviceable in the game, but not 100%. So those guys, we're gonna handle a little bit different. Other guys, we're going to spend fundamental work. There's times that a freshman like Robert Priester needs work on the first big run that popped out well, and his fundamentals, he needed to be in a leverage position, and that's things that it just takes some time sometimes where you're not so concerned about schemes. You're looking at, okay, here's our fundamentals of our defense and offense. So we'll do that. And then the other thing is a lot of schools will not practice on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And it has been my experience that with that long a gap with a fairly young football team, guys, it's kind of like you come back to Monday and you have to start all over again. And that's why we integrate a practice on Saturday. It would be a little bit more convenient for coaches and everything else not to practice on the weekend. My son is a starting linebacker for Morehead State. It's been nice to go up and watch him play, but I know that that model that we have in there is just about the right model to keep our guys engaged, keep them refreshed, rejuvenated, refine our skills, and get refocused to play University of Hawaii.
Craig, you mentioned Ledecky and Hardy. How's the rest of the injury situation? I know I don't see Jesse on the depth chart now,
right?
But where else?
Jesse will be out for a couple of weeks, and we're hoping to have him back in a couple of weeks. And so, going through quite frankly, Robert, going through the gauntlet that we went through, I think we're pretty fortunate. To play two top 10 teams and come through like we have, and then the other three games that we've had have been very competitive games where it comes down to one possession. It's not like we've had an opportunity to play some guys and then rest them. I mean, we've had 5 hard games, and it's a really good time to have a bye.
There's been a disparity between third and short conversion and third and long conversion so far, and obviously that's not surprising. But I guess how important is it in this offense to be able to make bigger gains in the first 2 downs and try to avoid those third and long situations?
We're not going to be very successful in third and long. I mean, we convert them every once in a while, but that's not our MO. And when we look back at our Florida Atlantic game, that's kind of a marker. We've got to do better. We can't just continue to be third down and 10. And I know Coach Vegan and our offensive staff, they're down there scheming, not only looking at Hawaii, but looking at us and saying, okay, what things can we do to create a third down and 2 as opposed to a third down and 9? And I think that's going to have a critical portion for us to be successful to stay on the field offensively. Is we're getting in the heart now of conference play, and this is what we're all about. Right now, this is where we're at. We played one conference game, and now we're going to get in the heart of it.
Obviously, you kind of assessed you're on a bye week. You have a lot of football left in this league. Mm-hmm. Are you fairly pleased where you're at right now and optimistic moving forward? And if you had to, maybe what are some of the biggest areas or issues moving forward for this team as you get into the rest of your league play?
Record-wise, I think if anybody, you're looking at 2 top 10 teams, you'd say pretty major upsets would be, national news. And we didn't get those done, and we weren't even close. There were some bright spots, but probably not as many as what we wanted to have. I'm certainly pleased that we came up with 3 wins on winnable games. They were not easy games to win, but nonetheless, we won them. So record-wise, you know what, you're saying, okay, we're in an okay position. Probably not optimal, but pretty good position, really. There's elements of our football team. I think, as our offensive line, it's going to be good to get 5 guys that are playing the same spot. That's going to be important for us. And that's what this next week will come into play. I think that's going to be important for us to continue to, hone up our run game and pass protection. Defensively, I think it's really going to be important. There's been times that we've played really well, and we've had point totals that have been held down. I think we took a step backwards against Michigan State, and that's not, I thought, that quarterback they have is probably going to be an NFL guy too. They've been known to put out NFL quarterbacks, and their big, strong offensive line. Heck, one time they threw Pat Mertens, our biggest guy, they threw him in the air 5 yards. But there's things within that game that we've got to get better at. For me to look the media in the eye and say, yeah, well, Michigan State was great, and we played pretty doggone well on defense. That's not accurate. I think there's a middle ground there. Michigan State, really good. We got to get better than what we just showed there, and so we'll work on that this week.
Still feel like, I know you've mentioned a lot, you want to leverage your defense this season. Still feel like moving ahead and as you get back into league play that you'll be able to do that. Do you still feel as confident in that right now?
I think there'll be a couple things that come into play. First of all, our offense will need to stay on the field more, not as many 3-and-outs. But that's going to be important, get that time of possession back in our favor. And then preventing the big plays. And I think we can do that. And we're fairly healthy, and I think that's still out there for us. If you look at the Air Force game, I thought we, even though we gave up some yards, I mean, that point total was down there, and it was apparent Boise State had a pretty hard time defending them. So I think that there's a real silver lining in our defense.
Definitely, like you said, been bright spots defensively in the 3 wins, but not a ton of those big game-changing plays as far as interceptions, sacks. What does that go into the fundamental stuff you're going to work on this week, or what can you kind of do to try to further?
I'm glad you brought that up because I failed to mention that. We don't have an interception. We don't have an interception. We've been okay at creating fumbles, takeaways, but we have got to get some interceptions, and so we're going to work on that. That's a point of emphasis to the staff that we talked about that last night. We need to have better ball security on offense, fumble the ball too much. Some of the errors that Colby they've been forced errors. We'll hone those back a little bit. But we've got to do a much better job creating takeaways on defense, and specifically interceptions are going to come into play. And some of that's going to come in. We're going to spend some extra time on, we've had opportunities. We just have not brought that ball in. And one thing that you'll find through the years I've found, if you pick a quarterback off, that gets that guy, a lot of them, out of their comfort zone. And if you ever get a pick 6 on a guy, that's a dagger to the heart. We have not done that yet.